Well, hello everybody. This is take 2 of AuraTale, my little Pokemon Deltarune Undertale AU crossover AU. I'm pissed because, well, you know, the first take I thought was pretty freaking awesome. But, it got copyright claimed all to hell. So this is take 2, hopefully that shit doesn't happen again. Or else I might just lose my mind more than I already have. Anyways, not long after the events of the end of Undertale, really, and the end of, well, whatever happened, like, in this video, actually, let's not make it like actually, let's just say I'm gonna do this as I go along. Anyways, basically, everyone's free from the underground. And now, the German household is full yet again. After a long while of, well, talking it down and, well, basically getting everyone to just forgive each other, as Gore and Toriel, finally get back together, and due to Frisk remembering how, their and Chara's soul kind of, matched together, so, knowing how, miserable Flowey is, down in the underground, he just decides to do the same thing, with Chara's soul and, Flowey's soul, basically, in order to bring Asriel back, and thus, peace is restored. And now we'll basically, a little something that he didn't tell the others is that Frisk had a sort of cousin named Chris. Not a regular cousin, but a cousin from a different world that was almost exact to their world, but different. Called the Deltarune. And, well, seeing as, they wanted to celebrate, basically the whole entire, thing, they used the power of determination to open a hole for the, multiversal, cousin of Frisk, Chris, well, and Chris's friends, to, that means Susie. And seeing as it's a dimensional portal, even the Darkner friends can come around, like Lancer and Ralsei. Everyone's happy. And hey, even due to the soul power, even though it took even longer than Shaw, Gash was able to be brought back. So that actually helped with opening the whole rift thing. And it was upon all their celebration when something unexpected happened.
Downy April Fresh gives you a whole week of freshness with just one wash.
A powerful energy comes over everyone, and, well, some of, the monster friends aren't exactly acting right. They seem to be almost zombifiably, like, controlled. Like dead brain. And Sans, being a judge, is one of the first, people to notice this. And, well, even though he does notice this, he has no idea what it is. But someone does seem to know. And they really didn't want to have to remember this, because they were hoping they would never have to come face to face with this. Ever. Chara does. Chara remembers very well what this is. And mumbling under their breath, Valeriant. The protective Pokemon. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this thing just like Batman, just come down, boom. Yeah. It's actually glowing blue, menacingly, and it's glaring at Chara. And it's charging up something like there. For those of you that do not know, that is a Valerian's signature move, Protection Breaker. Base power, 89. That is, if Valerian has been, damaged previously, but this Valerian looks pretty healthy. And if it's a healthy Valerian, the, damage will be increased from 89 to a power of 100. So yeah, if it hits anyone, it's going to kill them. And Chara knows this about Valerian. So she just pops out one of her, determination knife things and deflects the Protection Breaker. Which is basically chaos energy or a spear thing. Like a mix of chaos spear and aura spear. And, well, Valerian, like flaps out its wings, like whoosh, and then like it uses another one of its signature moves. That one being Connection Storm. Actually, it was Protection Breaker, and this one is Protection Storm. And Valerian, in the middle of the air, just raining down Protection Storm. And Protection Storm is basically based off of, well, a certain thing if it has the item known as the Chaos Shell. The base power 100 connections, like Protection Storm, is now base 250. But it does not seem to have the, Chaos Shell. And since it does not have the Chaos Shell, thank the Lord, it is not 250, but 100. Still dangerous, but Jesus Christ, thank the Lord. And Jura is like, wait, why doesn't it have why doesn't it have the Chaos Shell with it? Isn't that like a controlling item, like used in order to summon Valerian? If it wasn't summoned, then it would still be in the Cyan Chasm. This isn't right at all. And then Valerian starts to spin, and Jar's like, everyone, duck down! And it's like, it starts using Connection Spin. Like, Protection Spin. And Protection Spin is actually more of like an RNG thing. What Protection Spin does is it flips the stat of any Pokemon hit with it. So, say you have like a sweeper type Pokemon, or like, more or less, if you have a Pokemon with high defense and low attack, that Pokemon will have high attack and low defense, if you know what I mean. It basically flips the attack and defense and special attack and special defense stats. It also flips the HP and speed stats. It flips everything. So yeah, now we know 3 of the 4 move slot moves for like a Valerian. Protection Spear, protection shower, and a little something, protection spin. But it still has one signature move left. And this one's probably going to be the most problematic. Protection Force. And Protection Force doubles stats of a weakened Valeriant and triples the stats of a strong Valeriant. So basically, if you can set off a Protection Force on the opening of a battle where Valeriant is not harmed, all of its stats will be tripled. Not only this, but Protection Force allows it to go first, even if it's not supposed to normally, on any attack. So, yeah, basically have like a freaking walking death trap following him around. But then something unexpected happens. Someone just hears that. And Chara's like, no way. And Valerian seems to have its, basic, its entire, focus, distracted. And looking for the source of the sound. And everyone else seems to be looking for the source of the sound. And they see someone up in a nearby tree. An Aura Guardian. That's whenever Asgore and Toriel remembered the specific, magicians and sorcerer or whatever that had created the barrier in the first place, trapping them in the underground. They were known as Aura Guardians. And next to this Aura Guardian, there was a certain Pokemon. And this Pokemon, Chara's actually able to figure out what it is just from looking at it. Almost as if they've seen it before. Larandis. And the Aura Guardian is like, yes, Valeriant, please calm down. Remember what I said. I would give you back the Chaos Shell. And Valeriant's like, Valer? And the Aura Guardian gives it back the Chaos Shell, and, Valeriant's at peace with itself. Flying off to, all the way to the Cyan Chasm. Its true home. the person just like, damn it, Valeriant. This is like the third time this week that this has happened. Sorry for the inconvenience. The name is Aura Guardian Mikey. And Char's just like, Mikey? And Aura Guardian's just like, oh, Char. Almost didn't notice you there. But then again, you did kind of abandon me. And, well, we're gone for how many whatever long? I had heard, that you had died. So, well, since you abandoned me and then died, oh, well, you're alive now. I guess that's a light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the day. Mi amor. You really just pull some Spanish shit. Then again, Char's like, just because you took some classes from the, Paldea School of Language, doesn't mean you gotta, flaunt it all over me. And Mikey's just like, and not make you pay for just going out on me? I actually really cared about you, And, Asgore and Toriel, really have no idea what's going on. Because, actually they're around. Because, Asgore was gardening, and Toriel, is nearby the school, because that's where she teaches, school. They have no idea what's going on. And Frisk, knows what's going on, but that's because, not just the genocide route, but pacifist and neutral, well, they didn't really do a genocide route. But, well, throughout their journey, Char had been with them, and even confided with them some secrets of her own. And Azrael, well, Char didn't really feel like sharing secrets with Azrael because didn't know if, Azrael would keep those secrets. And to be fair, Azrael did ended up kind of being L-Man's whenever it mattered most that he not be an L-Man's, cough the whole shit where they both died. And then the Aura, Guardian just looks to Azrael and is like, Azzy, I remember hearing about you as back. How is it like being Char's brother? And Azrael can kind of, sense the sarcastic tension in that. And, well, the Aura Guardian, known as Mikey, is basically like, I should probably tell you guys about this, seeing as Char just seems too stupefied to, say anything. So yeah, over dinner, if you would have me, Lady Toriel, King Asgore. Toriel-san, Asgore-san. And, well, Toriel, while being very protective, is still curious, and Asgore's kind of around the same boat. so it doesn't need to happen. And, oh, look at this. Well, it does indeed seem that Mikey kept his Pokemon even after, Chara had left. Even their own Pokemon. That's right. Both of theirs.
You've got places to go, people to see, and things to do. You may have already gotten vaccinated for flu and COVID.
Later on at their house, basically decides to just come clean with it. You see, me and Chara go way back. Me and Chara, friends after all. I was a Aura Guardian training, and she was, she had dreams of, being a sort of Swiss Army knife, a war on two fronts, both Pokemon trainer and contest battler. We bonded over our love of Pokemon. And I don't know if Chara ever felt the same, but I grew feelings. One day, everything just turned for the worse, though. It happened when it did. Nothing was ever the same. Me and Chara were hanging out with our Pokemon. Me with Lurantis and Flygon, and Chara with Dratini and Eevee. Oh, and by the way, Chara, both Dratini and Eevee have evolved. Dratini into Dragonair, and I don't actually think you even noticed this, but the little thing on the necklace you gave to Eevee way back was actually an icy rock. So yes, Eevee evolved into Glaceal. What? Yep. Yeah, I kept them because, someone needed to take care of them, and the nearest, daycare center was miles away from, where I lived. You remember that, right? Oh, yeah. Damn it, I feel terrible. I didn't just abandon you, I abandoned my Pokemon. I'm horrible. Well, Dragonair seems to think so. But Glaceon not so much, just really missed you. Probably deserve that. seeing as the Dratini I caught had been, well, caught before and abused by his trainer. They didn't just left to die. I said I would be better, and I ended up almost being worse. Not really, the guy was a Pokemon poacher, posing as a Pokemon trainer. I mean, you were bad, but not that bad. You still love Pokemon, it's just, well, you kind of just fell off the way. Not exactly making me feel better. I wasn't trying to, I was just, making a fact known. It hurt whenever you left and didn't really even say where you were going or even that you had left. You didn't even say goodbye. Because I knew you would try and follow me, and I didn't want to drag you and your Pokemon into my suicide attempt. Well, of course I would have tried to follow you, not really follow you, but follow you to stop you from killing yourself. That's not the Chara I know. You loved the world. Sure, you may not exactly like humans, but that's a given considering how they treated you. You found something else to love. Pokemon. And I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, considering I'm not a big fan of humans either. They seem to get a real big kick out of bullying other species. There are some humans that are kind, but not that many that I know of. Except for you. You're once very kind to your Pokemon. You love them with all your heart. Just like myself. Though you didn't even really seem all that, keen on the whole life of them or guardian. You supported me in the only way you knew how to do while still following your own dreams. And so I decided to do the same for you. It was until you just up and left. Dragonair is really pissed, and Glaceon is, depressed. Oh, and by the way, Flygon fucking hates you. And as for Lorandis, well, you could say that they're floating in the same boat. Only, Lorandis would probably be more physical about it. Flygon would probably only get physical with the hatred if, it felt deserved. But Lorandis was my first. She really hates people that would do that. Just leave and not say. Even leave their Pokemon. Well, I didn't want them, getting out of their Pokeballs to see my dead body. Thank you very much. Why did you have to leave anyways? I mean, I know you don't like humans, but just... I don't think you understand how much it hurt me. Was it the storm incident? You did seem to get agitated whenever you heard the song. Part of it was the storm incident. It wasn't Lugia's fault. I know that! I know it wasn't Lugia's fault! life was hell after that. Even more than it already was. If it wasn't for the Shinsei, that would have never happened. Though you didn't help me with that. How was I supposed to help you? You're an Aura Guardian, I'm not. But they were hurting everyone. And the member I encountered that almost killed me, and by the time I, got around to it, is the time whenever I realized you left. Right after I almost died. Fighting off one of those Shinsei. Fang Shen. Mom? Yeah, your mom. She was a member of Shinsei? She is the leader of Shinsei. And still alive. Still out there. I failed to stop them. Those Pokemon. Those people. I could never forgive myself. And then whenever I realized that you were gone, I couldn't do anything but cry myself to sleep. It felt like I had died inside. Goodbye. Damn it, Charles, why you gotta be so fucking stupid? Yeah, so that, after that emotional discharge of what the fuckery, yeah, something is indeed revealed. An evil organization known as Shinsei. And their leader, a certain someone you may know from my whole Naruto Pokemon Summoner What If. Fang Shen. Who just so happens is Chara's mother. Yeah. And Mikey even knew this. But didn't know that Fang Shen was a part of, Shinsei. Yeah, like one of those twist villains only done, right. Like, Water Noose and Ernesto. Water Noose from Monsters, Inc. and Ernesto from Coco. Great twist villain. She acted all nice behind the scenes, but a certain event caused that all to change. The event whenever she lost everything, herself. Her Pokemon, her husband, and her child. Well, children. She was supposed to have twins, but they, something happened to them, and now she wants revenge. Because that's something that happened to them also involved her husband and, her Pokemon. And her husband's Pokemon. And the possible Pokemon that their children would gain whenever they came of age. Basically, having destroyed her life. And now she wants revenge on the avatars of love. Ilularis, Kakatarashi, Valeriant, Sonicius, and the most powerful of all, even more powerful than Arceus Sinjo, the true form, not like some of the other, ones. Even more powerful than them, Destoxtal, the Divine Oblivion Pokemon. Feng Shen lost everything, and now she plans on taking it out on everything else. You know, there is no wrath like a woman scorned. And that is so totally true within Feng Shen's case. Feng Shen was actually a part of a certain sect of, nearby Abbott City, known as Nia Uzu Shiogakure. And her entire backstory, I shall spin you the web, just so you guys know how the hell she became the leader of, Shinzei, the most powerful evil team in the entire freaking macrocosm. Macrocosm bigger than the freaking multiverse. Evil team in existence. You see, Feng Shen was indeed a cousin of a certain Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki. Much like Frisk and Chris, they were sort of multiverse cousins. Yes, that's right. She is, the Kushina of her own multiverse, own universe. Only unlike the canonicity of Naruto, whenever it came around to that, it did not go well. First of all, you gotta see that Nia Uzumaki clan was kind of made by the Shinzei. Powerful people that had a really great connection with Pokemon. Great enough to rival the Aura Guardians. And possibly even defeat them in battle. With their own synthetic aura. A synthetic aura known as 2.0 chakra. But that is more or less the clinical name. It is sort of like a mix in between aura and chakra. Like all forms of chakra. Physical, spiritual, senjutsu, and even demonic. With synthetic aura acting kind of feel like the Force or bending. Because it's like endless. These Neo Uzumaki are basically freaking impossible to take down because they're like superhumans. So, in order to, keep the Leaf Village alive, even though Madara didn't want to do this, this is actually a crossover with Naruto as well. Seeing as, Fang Shen's actually from the Naruto Pokemon Summoner What If. It's also a Pokemon crossover with Naruto as well. Basically, Madara did not want to, compromise with, Shinzei. The Neo Uzumaki, also known as Shinzei. But Hashirama and Tobirama, even though Tobirama also didn't want to compromise with them, let that be the one thing that those two have in common. They did not want to, no. But Hashirama, being level-headed, actually, in this situation, actually figured out a way to have peace with Shinzei. And after a while, they just faded into the background. With Shinzei basically, being, completely hidden, even more than the hidden villages themselves. All until their leader, Fang Shen, was pronounced to be married, and then after their marriage, was also pronounced to be pregnant with 2 instead of 1. Fang Shen was happy in her marriage and happy, knowing that she was going to have kids. And she also loved the Pokemon that she had. The Shinsei didn't exactly act as if Pokemon were tools, but, Fang Shen was an exception because she didn't just act like they weren't tools, but she loved Pokemon. And so it was extremely devastating whenever she found the Almighty Fruition. What is the Almighty Fruition? It is a certain crystal that is set for the base of an unknown world, seeming to be the kingdom of the most powerful of all of the Avatars of Love, a Pokemon known as Testoxtal, the original creator of something known as the DW, or something that they called the Digiwu. DW, Digiwu. The Digiwu is actually a source that, basically funnels in, the power of the very thing that opened up that world gate. To begin with. The Almighty Fruition. But whenever this world gate was opened, the very, home world of the Testoxtal, this species of sort of like pre-humans had been, within, the balance of in between the worlds, saw their chance to capitalize upon this by transporting this certain stone that the Shinsei had, and upon transferring the stone, they basically managed to suck up all the energies in order to basically, make their world better. But in doing this, a large freaking tree was made in order to encompass the newly born Destoxtel, born and within this reality. Destoxtel didn't even really like it that they were like killing its home. But there was one, pre-human girl that, well, sort of, much like Fang Xin, really liked Pokemon. Cared for them a lot. Turns out this girl was actually blessed with the spirit of Fang Xin's daughter, seeing as she was going to have a boy and a girl. Basically, the futuristic what-if spirit of Fang Xin's daughter, sure, if it was actually to be born. This girl, being known as Asmodia. Not Asmodeus, Asmodia. And Asmodia, well, was actually the daughter of some nobles. Hardworking nobles, but still nobles. That worked for the middle class, like middle class's equality, amongst all the other snooty nobles. These people were known as the Amada family. Actual good people. The Amada family are much like Fang Xin and the Shinsei. They actually, like Pokemon. And are sort of like precursors to the age of Arceus and the humans that were around at that time. The whole movie Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Those humans. And even the human that, hunted Pokemon in that one story from Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, the whole place where you find that book, and it's about that, long ago, where that one human, hunted Pokemon, or, maybe it was a bunch of humans, and Giratina had come up and basically, told them that what they were doing was wrong, and that's how, basically, Pokemon became friends instead of something to be hunted. It still happened, but just not as much anymore. The norm was actually to befriend Pokemon, and the non-norm was to be a dick to Pokemon. But this was way back in the time in which, Pokemon were still being hunted by humans. But these were pre-humans, so even ancestors of that guy. But the Amada family were the exception. They realized that what the other people were doing is wrong, and so they actually practiced, being nice to Pokemon to make up for what others were doing. In fact, if it weren't for the Amada family, Pokemon would have probably gone extinct. Well, at least the smaller ones, not the legendaries, but the smaller ones. You see, this girl, Asmodia, she was basically the heiress to the Amada family. And, well, Destoxtel, much like the sort of King Kong or Frankenstein of anyone's day, getting involved, even a freaking creature of the Black Lagoons, getting involved with humans, whenever, they should have just stayed where they were. It's a classic case of that. They kind of fell in love. Deeply in love. And the pre-humans didn't exactly like that, especially their parents, the entirety of the Amada clan. And, well, this entire war in between Pokemons and humans, well, pre-humans that had been started because of this, well, led to Asmodia ending herself to, like, sort of, like, repair the damage. Only, this backfired, like, unbelievably backfired, causing, the Stockstill to, like, rage out and just destroy almost everything in something known as the Great Cleansing. Or the Great Love's Cleansing. Or even, some of the more, regal families known as the Day of Amore. Or Day of the Crimson Amore. Day of the Crimson Love. Or Bloody Love. So yeah, basically it was the Darkest Day, only worse. Because even though the Darkest Day was terrible, this shit almost eradicated the entire fucking macrocosm. And what stopped this? Well, the pre-humans actually figured out a way to divide the Stockstill into different pieces, and leave the main piece to be sealed within the very tree that was its home, turning it into its prison. That is the entire reason why there are like 5 different avatars of love, whenever originally there was only one. The Stockstill, the most powerful being to ever exist. The one above all. The Ultra Divine, even. The Almighty Ultra Divine, as said in the fables talking about it. And even in Pokedex entries, however little there are. The Stockstill known as the Almighty Divine. The most powerful. The Almighty Divine. And whenever Shinzei got whiff of what they had done to the Stockstill, like, bajillion years later, through some texts that had barely been able to survive, ancient texts, of what turns out to be the soul of Asmodia, realizing how much of a freaking flop, like an L-man's move she made, and offing herself, basically, having written down these texts to warn people about, such a catastrophic annihilation of damn near everything. And not to repeat the same mistake that she had made. Not to piss off the Stockstill, even if it is currently sealed. But Shinzei, the entirety of Shinzei, basically, this great discovery, they wanted to make it like a law to not F with this whole entire thing. To go by Asmodia's word as a law of, existence. They were, very insistent that no one ever fucked with the balance of the avatars of love. For the one above all avatars of love, the original, the true, the full, the only avatar of love, the Stockstill would run amok. And they might not be so lucky next time, if there ever is next time. But after basically, the avatars of love getting a whiff of, all this stuff about their original piece, the Stockstill being, spread around, information being spread around about it, they didn't like that, so they wanted to target the main source of this discussion. And that just so happened to be Fang Shin. So they decided to send a message. And the entire reason for them sending this message is because the fourth avatar of love, Sonicius, hacked the minds of the other three avatars of love. Yes, the fourth avatar, Sonicius, is known as the Glitch Love Pokemon. And that's because it basically rigs everything. See, Sonicius is kind of ultimate chaos incarnate, even more than Yveltal or Giratina combined. And, basically, more or less, only looking out for itself. And maybe not even that even. Because basically, I'm just gonna do this just because. It hates order. Hates anything to do with order. So it just decides to, manipulate its brethren into fucking with this lady. And that is how the identity of Fang Shen is created. Because Sonicius messed it up in Fang Shen's life so bad that her husband, her Pokemon, her children are no longer existent. Sonicius decides to collaborate with the other avatars, being Valeriant, Kakatarashi, and Ilularius, to just absolutely fuck this woman over. But not, erase her in particular, because Sonicius wanted her to suffer. And Fang Shen did not, take lightly to this. And the revolution that she planned to lead against the, avatars of love ended up creating two different evil teams beyond just, Shenze. The two other evil teams being Spark Divine and Ultra Divide. Basically, Spark Divine and Ultra Divide were created after the whole calamity against Zonicius had started because of Zonicius being an absolute dick to this woman and her taking on the identity Fang Shen. Because Fang Shen in the old text meant the All-Martyr God Destroyer. Basically, Fang meaning All-Martyr and Shen meaning God Destroyer. In, their language. That Shenze had found out about. So, Fang Shen. All-Martyr God Destroyer. Just as a little message to Sonicius that it had fucked up royally. And so Sonicius goes into hiding, basically wanting to face this, madman of a woman. Showing that Sonicius doesn't exactly, take responsibility for anything. It is literally chaos incarnate, so why would it? And now, because of this, the other, the other avatars of love, basically accomplices to what Sonicius had done, not by choice, but manipulation, but Fang Shen does not give a damn. Basically these split organizations from, Shenze. Now these three organizations live at the same time period and all have different goals. The Shenze basically goals to destroy all of the avatars. But the other two organizations, Spark and Divide, Spark is almost like the Illuminati, but Divide is like a freaking anonymous label of the fucking terrorist. Like it's like that. And these organizations go way back to barely after, the original founding of Shenzei, and then the corresponding what happened after everything that happened to, the one who would be known as Fang Shen. Previous identity, Kushina Neo Uzumaki. There's a reason why, in my, Poke Summer story, Fang Shen looks so much like Kushina. Because she's an alternate universe's version of Kushina. And thus, her husband, Minato, well, alternate version of Minato, and her children that she was supposed to have, alternate versions of both Naruto and, well, people's usual female version of Naruto, Naruko. And the Pokemon that she had, basically alternate versions of the Pokemon that Naruto will have in the Pokemon Summoner story. He'll eventually get those Pokemon. Starting with Trooper, in part 1. Yeah, so now that I just rambled off, just wanting to give you a good reason why everything is happening. Everything being ultra connected. Yeah. Basically like the Lord of the Rings of the Pokemon. Like, that's how freaking crazy this shit is. And hey, even though, like, the backstory of Fang Shen, also known as Neo Kushina, I guess, Neo Kushina, or basically, like, Fang Shen as she is known now, even though her backstory is so damn fucking sad, considering what happened in order to turn her to Fang Shen. Usually a woman scorned is bad enough, but an Uzumaki woman scorn is even worse. Like, people are just asking to die by doing that. Especially since even though it's an alternate version of Kushina, it still has the alternate version of the Ninetales. Seeing as, well, those children were never born, the Ninetales was, never turned into like another person. So, yeah, still has the Ninetales. Yeah, so Fang Shen just has this deep hatred for the avatars of love. Just this deep hatred. Especially since, Destoxel was the one to create the egg that, formed Arceus. And, well, Arceus, kind of knows that. And so there are only really two things that it is afraid of. One of those being the, reemergence of Destoxel, and the other one being Fang Shen. Because, well, Fang Shen is the, Jinchuriki of the Neo Kurama. And Arceus may be powerful, but the Neo Kurama is basically like the Ten Tails but on steroids. Due to, like, synthetic aura being churned within the aura of the Ninetales. Not chakra of the Ninetales. Basically making a super juiced up Kurama. Making, Fang Shen even more deadly than before. It's basically like whenever, like, Po and, like, the Five and, like, the other masters were, like, fighting Shen in Kung Fu Panda 2. And he was like so ridiculously OP with his fucking death weapon. Only Fang Shin actually has, prowess beyond anything that, Shin from the Kung Fu Panda 2 movie could even ever do. So probably would never even need a death weapon, would just have it anyways, because that's how much she fucking hates. Like, she could be confused for a damn Sith Lord. That's how much she just fucking hates. And just like the Sith Lords, the hate just allows her to live, even though some stuff she probably would never be able to survive normally. Yeah, she is literally the Pokemon definition of, and, Naruto definition of a fucking Sith Lord. But beyond Sith Lords. Like, some of the shit that she's able to do is even beyond the most powerful Sith Lords. Especially since after what happened to basically everything she had ever loved, so then she decided to go even further by destroying all of the new Uzumaki clan, who would also be known as Shinsei in the future. But that's basically because she got new people to become, Shinsei. Because, the originals were all massacred, except for her. Like, so Nishida would basically just want to F with this woman. Bad move. And that is where I'm gonna end it all. But first, with a little joke I did at the end of the original, like the first draft. Why did this skeleton have no one to go to the, prom with? Because he was very bonely.